In this video, we are talking about fake grass at the Disney theme parks, but also Universal. There has been an interesting study that came to light recently about that might make these companies think twice about adding it in their theme parks. We're also going to talk about Abigail Disney's new documentary, The American Dream, Another Fairy Tales. That's going to be very fascinating. We have a lot to dive into today on this episode of OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. I brought my good friend, my collaborator, my producer back with me today. Bash Guy, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on OG 55. Dre, welcome back, sir.
Hey, it's good to be back. Good to be back. Thank you for having me. This is quite an interesting couple of stories here, but first, let's go ahead and dispense with the pleasantries. If you want to go ahead and see me, you can go ahead and actually follow me. You can go and do so right down there at Vash Guy on Twitter. Just go ahead and type it in. Should pop up there for all the, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion. Should be right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Hey, do you have that Christine Waysons McCarthy by chance?
Absolutely.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
The biggest bargain of all. And this is the biggest bargain of all on YouTube when it comes to all Disney theme park or entertainment content, I think. So go ahead and subscribe. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur. So we're going to get this party started. The first topic of today is the artificial grass recently installed at the Disneyland Resort, but it's been over at the Magic Kingdom in Florida for a little while now, and also Universal Orlando for a while now. But things aren't all rosy with the artificial grass. Dre, you brought this to my attention the other day. I'm going to go ahead and let you set the table and kind of do the honors, my friend.
I did. As I was casually web surfing, as I often do, there's been some interesting articles in the news outside of the Disney parks, but some of those are directly related. And as I was browsing the web, and actually as my mother was browsing the web, which I'll go ahead and give her credit for actually sending me this article, she found something quite particularly interesting. It was actually in The Guardian. And this story goes as follows. Boston bans artificial turf in parks due to toxic, quote, forever chemicals. I thought, well, that's interesting because we just happen to have a park next to us that happened to add some of these, artificial lawns, let's say, that I suppose use these forever chemicals. And it turns out that pretty much every single artificial turf in existence right now, no matter what it be for, happens to have those forever chemicals linked to them. So I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. And it goes on to say the reasons as to why here. Let's see. Lost my place. Okay, yeah, here we go. So they call them PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. I believe them. We'll just go with PFAS for short. Are a class of about 12,000 chemicals often used to make products that resist water, stain, and heat. They are called, quote, forever chemicals because they don't naturally break down and are linked to cancer, liver problems, thyroid issues, birth defects, kidney disease, decreased immunity, and other serious health problems. And apparently, this was particularly problematic for the instances of kind of a park that you would have in kind of a city or town because, well, kids are exposed to it regularly, right? And none of those things seem to, I would see why parents don't want their kids exposed to substances like that. They're saying that it, decreases immunity. They're saying that that there are problems that as these things are absorbed through the skin, inhaled, ingested, or get in open wounds, They, these can kind of break off from the plastic blades. Children are considered more vulnerable to exposure because they're smaller and their bodies are still developing, that kind of thing. I mean, this is all kind of like, ooh, this is not something you necessarily, want to feature in your in your park, or at least I can see the reasons why you wouldn't want to feature in your park, and
Right.
I can see why parents will be outraged. But it goes on to say that not just Boston has, Boston's not the only city, let's say, to ban the use of this material. Apparently, there are cities in Connecticut that have banned it, and also cities in the Bay Area that have banned it. And there are some studies that kind of show that this PFAS is kind of it's interwoven to every single one of these grass fields and so forth. So they've just kind of banned it entirely because of that. But there's also another kind of interesting development in this story. Just right before we were going, we were going live here for this show, Gavin Newsom has signed a slew of bills, like hundreds of them. And one of those actually relates to this, indirectly for now. But AB 1817 bans the use of chemicals commonly known as PFAS from being used in fabrics and makeup by 2025. This is for the entire state. Now, this doesn't affect artificial turf, but you can see the implication here. You can see where this is going. You can see that, Disney not only might want to maybe rethink the use of this in certain instances, right? Now, look, for the storybook land, kind of grass that's featured in that area, or the what is it, the Mickey Topiary in front, right? The in front of the Main Street train station. I think those are fine, but we do have a land coming in the form of Toontown that seeks to use a lot of this throughout that land as kind of children's play places, if you were, and this can get there seems to be a conflict here that might preclude Disney either by force or by optics from actually using this stuff, and I wonder if they're looking at this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Now, Disneyland Resort has an opportunity here. Like you mentioned, all the artificial turf that they've installed recently, the Mickey Floral, the Haunted Mansion turf, and the Storybook Canal turf is all out of range, so to speak, from guests. You're not able to like sit on those particular areas in terms of the grass. But in Orlando, Magic Kingdom added artificial turf in front of their castle as part of their new hub design, so people can sit and lounge and watch the fireworks. Universal Studios in Orlando also has artificial grass areas in front of some staging area as well, and it's been there at Universal for many, many, many years. So it's a huge problem in Florida, because not only is it coming to light now that this artificial turf is not necessarily safe, but it's been in use at Disney World and Universal Orlando for years. That's a huge problem for both Disney and Universal, in my opinion. Disneyland Resort has an opportunity now to rethink this area that you brought up here, that this grassy little area. Rethink that. Maybe it's best just to use real grass, right? They can leave the artificial turf on the areas that are all gated up. Fine. Guests don't come in contact with that. But if you're going to have small children on this grass and what have you, I think if there's science out there saying that it's not necessarily safe or can cause long-term effects, I think it's not worth the risk. I think you go ahead and use either another material, or you just put real grass, or you don't have a grassy area for guests to lounge all over. You just make it a normal kind of park with benches and cobblestone and what have you. But I think Disney really has to rethink this approach. In Florida, I don't know what they're going to do, because that's been out there for years.
It has, and as you're looking in your screen here, folks, you can see how this new kind of Toontown that they're constructing right now at the back of Disneyland will feature a lot of grass, and the assumption is because of the drought problems that California is going through right now, and because of Disney's inclination to use this stuff everywhere that they can. We're all kind of speculating that they're going to be using this artificial turf in these areas as well. And, it's like, I mean, with these kind of stories coming out there, and again, this is, The Guardian. It's not, I don't know, Fox News or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
the company will take an article by the Guardian or the LA Times or the New York Times or all of those kind of publications in kind of a different light. Well, you're coming at a kind of a crossroads when it comes to at least optics, but there are other problems with this kind of stuff too. Now, the for any of the sports fans out there, I know NFL players have talked about the differences between artificial turf or AstroTurf. That was known because one of the first implementations of it was in the Astrodome, in kind of the Texas area, and that's kind of where the AstroTurf kind of gets its name from. There's been some arguments between, AstroTurf and real grass in terms of injuries, in terms of even concussions and so forth. That's kind of a big topic right now. So that's I've heard these kind of criticisms of this product for years on that level. But apparently, there's also other issues related to it. I guess it absorbs heat and can't dissipate heat at the same degree that real grass can. The article makes mention that some of these grasses can absorb so much heat they can get up to like 200 degrees, which is like, whoa, that's really hot. Ironically, Disney might be installing this in the same place that they had heat problems before in the past. The area behind Goofy's house actually had a play area as it was installed back in 1992, 1993. And they had to close it off, pretty early into opening because some of the items there were just exposed to the sun. They got too hot for kids to touch. And so it's like, that's kind of ironic that you might be installing a product that might be causing, it might be the cause of the same thing happening again. Very, very kind of interesting. But I agree with you, OG. I would say, just to kind of get ahead of this, I would probably stop using it for, guest trafficked areas, right? I'd probably take it out from those areas specifically. Now, I don't think, you're going to have too much of a problem if it's, for example, if it's in the courtyard and Haunted Mansion and so forth. Right. I'm not seeing, that being a particular issue, or the what is it, the steps of Splash Mountain, the kind of jut outs that they have with kind of artificial product there.
Yeah,
I don't think you're gonna have an issue.
No one's touching that stuff. So
right, but if you have kids rolling around it and the article implicates, where you get a cut, you get some of that in you, it's that could be a particular issue. Now, I know California has those signs there. I forget which proposition it was, but this facility or this place might has chemicals that might cause cancer and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but this is just a little bit more than that. I can see a good attorney making the argument, oh, hey, look, you featured concept artwork that featured children playing on this. You encouraged children to play on this. Right. You encouraged children to expose themselves to this. And, you were otherwise negligent in not understanding the risks, or you were grossly negligent because you understood the risk and you still put kids at risk. I can see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and especially in a litigious state like California, in a litigious country like we have today, I don't know. This is why I kind of brought it to your attention, OG, because it's like, this is this could be an issue.
Yep. Got to nip it in the bud. Got to nip it in the bud. It's a little late for Florida, but here in Anaheim, they still have time. Disney, if you are by chance watching this, definitely rethink it because you can definitely avoid some issues out here. But we got another topic we're gonna talk about today, which is Abigail Disney, and she's been causing the Walt Disney Company a whole lot of headache lately, and not lately, actually, been a few years now, to say the least. All right, so let's dive into this. Okay, so there's a new film out by activist Disney Air, follows 4 theme park custodians who earn $15 an hour and are battling to make ends meet. All right, so it says here, I'm going to read you just a couple key points from this article. It says Abigail Disney has previously criticized the firm that bears her name, but for the first time, Disney, the granddaughter of co-founder Roy O. Disney, has expressed her thoughts via the medium on which the Mouse House was built, a film. And she goes on to talk about stuff, and it's really, really interesting, okay? It says here, quote, and this is from Abigail. This is a quote from Abigail Disney. Quote, they've followed the path of almost every other corporation in this nation, end quote. Quote, they began with a larger concept of themselves than that, Disney said in an interview. The Walt Disney Company was superior. It was a softer and nicer. It was a human enterprise. Quote, we've lost the plot, Disney said. Okay, here's the problem. There's a lot of problems, I think, with this film. And I look, nothing against Abigail as a person, but I very much disagree with her. And I think she's actually very misinformed, to be quite honest with you. When she says here that the Disney Company was different back in the day, it was softer and nicer, that's just flat out false. It's just not true. The Walt Disney Company has had a reputation since Walt Disney has been alive of not exactly being the nicest corporation when it comes to their talent. Yeah, Walt Disney was great to his inner circle, the 9 old men, Mary Blair. Absolutely, he was great to them. He doesn't have the same reputation with the rank and file. Okay, he just doesn't. There was the big strike, the studio strike in 1940s, which we're going to dive into a lot of detail in regards to that. Walt Disney was notoriously anti-union. I mean, I don't know what Abigail is talking about with this, but Dre, what are your overall thoughts so far in regards to this film and kind of like the overall takes that the company was somehow nicer to employees back then, and now it's a big bad, Disney? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll save my criticisms for the latter part of this discussion, but you would think that Abigail would know her grandfather's company's history. It's kind of surprising that she does not, because or she's trying to kind of, I don't know, what is it, to reimagine the history, let's say, of the company, because it's, I don't know, softer, bigger than what they thought. I mean, yeah, like Disney definitely became, Walt was definitely a idealist for sure, right? And he definitely had big aspirations near the end there with Epcot and so forth. I mean, it was quite large, but it wasn't always that way. That's the thing. And in 1941, as you allude to, the strike years, that was particularly at issue in regards to Disney. I want to go ahead and play a clip here real fast to kind of go ahead and explain this point. Now, this is from Defunctland, who is just guys, I mean, if you haven't subscribed to him, what are you doing? Like, go over there, subscribe to him. He creates some of the best kind of documentary stuff on YouTube, honestly. And look, listen, you compare his stuff to even stuff on Disney Plus. I mean, it puts it to shame, quite honestly. It's crazy that YouTube that YouTube is basically, it's free and you can see this stuff. I mean, it really is fascinating. But Defunctland is among the best of them. And I want to go ahead and play you a segment of his video that I guess it's called the craziest party that Disney ever put on. It deals with a number of subjects and is absolutely worth watching in its entirety. But I wanted to go ahead and focus on just before the strike that actually kicked off on May 29th, 1941. So this is I think a few weeks earlier than that incident. There's two notable things I want to show you here. Art Babbitt, as you're seeing on your screen here, how he converses with Roy Disney about better wages for, I believe, the ink and paint girls and so forth. How that conversation goes, you tell me. If the Disney company was softer, this is her grandfather directly implicated in this, and then I believe what would be her great uncle Walt.
So yeah,
I think that's how that relation would be. And you could see the speech that Walt gives to his animators leading up to the strike that, a lot of people say was the inflection point that actually kicked it off in the first place. So let me go ahead and play this clip here to express the point. Here we go.
Babbitt continued to fight for his fellow animators, even approaching Roy about giving the ink and paint girls a raise.
You keep your nose out of our business, or we'll cut it off.
In a last-ditch effort to prevent the animators from forming a union, Walt held two large meetings in February of 1941 to present his case to his staff. He started the prepared speech strong by openly admitting that the studio was in a financial crisis, mainly due to the quick expansion, the box office failings of Pinocchio and Fantasia, and the loss of the foreign market due to World War II.
There's a lot of tumultuous times, right? A lot of things that are kind of putting the company at stake. Not so unlike, the company of today in many respects, but we'll get there.
He then announced that he would be laying off staff, as he felt that downsizing was the only way to avoid cutting everyone's pay. He then turned to the topic of those that wanted to join a union.
My first recommendation to the lot of you is this. Put your own house in order. You can't accomplish a damn thing by sitting around and waiting to be told everything. If you're not progressing as you should, instead of grumbling and growling, do something about it.
What?
This speech was objectively terrible.
I thought
it actively convinced people that were indifferent.
I thought he was soft. I thought it was Uncle Walt. I thought, what have I been hearing? I'm confused, right?
Right? Yeah, this is a completely different picture. That's the thing with Abigail, is that she makes it seem like this is a new thing, that Disney's tough on their employees all of a sudden. It's just all of a sudden, the past few years, this is a new thing. It's not a new thing. Walt Disney was tough as nails. Roy O. Disney, her grandfather, was tough as nails. They were it was not a soft company at all. I mean, this is crazy that she tries to portray it like that. If you're going to do a documentary, at least have all the facts lined up and be accurate. That's all I'm saying. And clearly she just doesn't. She absolutely doesn't. It seems like she's trying to spin a narrative. And if this kind of stuff was if this came out, it would go against her narrative. So it's just simply not there.
I do agree. One more quote here just to kind of drive this point in further.
Don't forget this. It's the law of the universe that the strong shall survive and the weak must fall by the way. And I don't give a damn what idealistic plan is cooked up. Nothing can change that.
Not quite the soft, loving company that Abigail tries to portray. Now, look, that's not to say that Walt was some taskmaster, right? No. That he was what is it? He absolutely treated his employees and his animators a lot better than a lot of the surrounding studios at the time. Okay, this is like the 1930s, 1940s. Okay, where there was before the big unionization push and so forth, and still he treated them as fairly as he possibly could in those days, while also creating some of the best content that has been put out in the 20th century. So it's it's one of those things. They weren't perfect by any stretch, and they definitely weren't soft in many of these stretches either. But the description that Abigail goes with. Now, look, listen. Her film, I guess it follows, I think, 4 custodial cast members throughout the entire thing. I saw a little bit of it. I wasn't able to see the entire thing before this video, unfortunately. But she starts out saying that, my family's enterprise created one of the largest middle classes the world had ever seen, and she's saying this in the context of Disneyland opening in 1955, and it's like, what are you talking about? I mean, Disney. I don't know if anybody would actually assume that Disney, or presume that Disney created the middle class that was experienced in the 1950s and 60s, and then on. I that's a weird thing to say. Again, it's like it's, and what she's trying to do, and why she's kind of she's what is it, distorting the facts a little bit, is she's trying to create this disparity. Oh, look how great the company was back then and compared to the company now. And it's like, that's not quite accurate.
Well, it's not accurate. And then even the title. I mean, look, I even have issues with the title of the documentary. I'll be completely honest with you. The American Dream and Other Fairy Tales, implying the American Dream is a fairy tale. It's a myth. Well, Abigail, respectfully, you have the platform that you currently enjoy because of the American Dream. Walt Disney was the fucking poster boy for the American Dream. He came to Los Angeles with $40 in his pocket and built the biggest media company in the world. That's the American Dream that you are claiming in your documentary is just a myth. It's a fairy tale. It's make-believe. It's not make-believe. And she directly benefits from that American Dream. Yeah. I'm sorry. It makes me mad. It makes me mad that she benefits and she profits off of something that she's claiming didn't happen and doesn't exist. It absolutely does exist. Walt Disney lived the American Dream. He came from nothing, and became one of the most influential people in entertainment and really in pop culture. Yeah. And she enjoys that. She enjoys that benefit. I just, you know what? Can't go there. I think that's disgusting. What are your thoughts, Trey, on that?
No, it's ridiculous. It's just such a distortion. And she even talks about how, like, Elias, Walt's dad, he was raising his whole family on, I think, $1 a day back in the day. Walt Disney himself worked thousands of hours as when he was a child, selling newspapers and, selling candies and treats on the various trains that he used to work at and so forth. He served in World War I. Like you said, he came from, he came to Los Angeles with $40 in his pocket and a dream kind of thing. I mean, like you said, he built it from nothing. And that's kind of why he came from this, he was so critical of his employees, because he had kind of come from the school of hard knocks there. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, I kind of understand where Walt's mentality was, what the context of everything that he was attempting to do at the studio was, and yeah, I mean, he was a little bit idealistic and maybe didn't, he had a great sense of the audience, but maybe not a great sense of the temperature in the room regarding his animators and so forth. I get that, I got that, but it's. I don't know. I mean, I think Abigail's a little off base, and in the context of the film, she follows 4 custodial cast members. Look, I get it. I can. What is it? The living wage argument, right? Yeah. Is kind of. Unfortunately, it's very subjective, and while people can use subjective metrics and kind of twist them and contort them to kind of fit their narrative, it's a very, very complicated issue. And is it really, in the grand scheme of things, Disney's, responsibility to solve? I just don't see it. Look, just to give you guys some perspective on this issue, employees at Disneyland, right? 30,000 cast members. I believe they start around $15 an hour, right? To put that into greater perspective, a welder who went and got a skill, got a trade, took the classes, courses, all that kind of stuff. In California, he earns about $22 an hour. A network administrator, which takes a number of years of schooling to actually get to that point with a skill within the the IT community, he gets around, I believe it was like $36 an hour in California. That's $15 an hour for what is a low skill job. That's actually pretty good.
It's pretty good. Exactly.
When I'm kind of looking at it. Now, look, is $15 like a huge amount in California? No, the medium house, the average home costs around the country is about, I think it was like $320,000 to $350,000, right? And just on that, even just to afford the mortgage, you'd have to be with a combined income of over like $100,000 a year. In Orange County, the average home cost is like $1.2 million. I mean, it's like I don't think the Disney company is ever going to pay necessarily that much to a low skill, minimum wage employee, minimum wage by California standards. I don't think they're going to ever get to that point there. I don't think they're going to ever going to overcome that. And I don't think necessarily it's Disney's responsibility to do that. Now, look, I think we can, find a happy medium there. But at 15, that's, look, I understand there's inflation, rising costs, all that kind of stuff. And I think wages will continue to increase, on their own as a result of that. And maybe the Disney company could take some steps towards that direction more than any other company. But again, when you get the living wage and so forth, I mean, who defines a living wage? Who defines all this kind of stuff? It can be very subjective. Go ahead.
Well, and the cost of living out in California is like ridiculous. Like the average like one bedroom apartment will run you like $1,500 a month. So how much is a living wage? So I mean, okay, so how much do you have to pay these cast members starting to afford a $1,500 apartment every month, a one bedroom? I mean, it's, and is that, like you said, right, is that Disney's responsibility? At what point does California bear some of this responsibility? In my opinion, it's the California cost of living that's the real disease, and Disney is a symptom. If you go to any other company, whether it be Universal, the Apple Store, H&M, Macy's, it doesn't matter. And you interview their employees like Abigail did here. Raise your hand if you can't afford food. Raise your hand if you have trouble paying your rent. You would have the same responses for just about any kind of rank and file worker out here in California, no matter whether they work at Disney or whether they work at Macy's, H&M, Apple Store, it doesn't matter. California's cost of living is the main issue. Yeah. Disney would have to pay their workers an incredible amount for a living wage. And look, I don't want to see anyone struggle. I don't want to see anyone living on the streets or struggling to buy food. But Disney's responsibility is to abide by California's laws. And the minimum wage in California is set. And that's really the only obligation Disney has. All right, that's it. And low skill work is going to be minimum wage. And it sucks. I get it, but it's the way it's always been. I worked a minimum wage job when I was a teenager, and I didn't expect that to like pay my rent or a mortgage or anything. It's just the way it is. Sometimes if you're not getting paid enough, then you got to move on and find something better for yourself. At the end of the day, though, it's not Disney's responsibility, in my opinion.
And the criticisms are, oh, well, I can get paid the for the same kind of work for more. And it's like, at other places, right? It's like, okay, well, we'll do that. I mean, that's there's nothing stopping you necessarily from entering into those positions, if you have the skill sets for it and so forth. Look, I mean, if you look, Disney has about 30,000 employees working in the Disneyland area right now. If you multiply that by $15 an hour and so forth, and I know not every employee makes that much, and so and some of them are part time, and it all of those things. But I mean, we're talking like $1 billion a year just on labor at that price point.
Right.
I mean, what does a living wage constitute? Do you want to go 2 times, 3 times? You're talking about, $2 billion a year, $3 billion a year. I mean, that's a significant amount of change just on labor alone. These are entry level positions. I mean, it's like, and I wonder the four people that she follows in her documentary. You know, a lot of the times when these employees, you know, they make these statements to the media, which they have done, I think it really got kind of quite thick in 2015, 2016 during the presidential election when Bernie Sanders was in town, right? He had that whole big speech in the convention center saying, you know, Bob Iger doesn't pay his employee, that kind of whole thing. And you had a lot of cast members actually make statements to the media. A lot of them were not just union representatives, but they were union executives who were getting salaries along with the regular pay at Disney. And it was like, there's a little bit of there's a little bit of other things going on here. It's not just, you know, the what is it, the maid at, you know, the Disney hotel, sharing her life story, and it's just that there's other layers to this that a lot of times I've seen withheld, you know, surrounding this story. And so I always kind of, you know, I get suspicious when I see some of these people go on these media circuits and so forth, because it's like, what's the other agenda playing out here? Right. And anybody who's been connected to this for long enough, you'll start to realize there's a pattern there. And I don't know, you know, there's some agenda pushing and stuff like that. Obviously, on both sides, everybody has the agendas that they want to push and narratives they want to tell, so forth. But it's not always one side. It's not just big bad company and you know, helpless worker. It's there's a duality there for sure.
100%. Fascinating conversation today, Dre. I want to thank you so much, brother, for coming on, talking shop, talking fake grass, talking the Abigail Disney, you know, documentary. But if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Yes. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter. It's right down there. Just type it in, @VashSky, should pop up. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed. Your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
There's no turning back now.
As we enter the world of politics and wages and so forth, I guess there is no turning back now. I guess this video is in the can. But look, listen, guys, before you hit the comment section hard and criticize us on what we might be saying, just know that we absolutely love the cast members that work at the resort right now. We don't want anybody to struggle, like we said. However, there's a bigger perspective that I think people should keep in mind there regarding many of the issues that surround Disney and Disney Resort and so forth. And if it gets too much, go out and just touch some grass, but make sure it's real grass. We want to hold off on the artificial stuff just for a little moment.
Yeah, no, 100%. Absolutely. I want to echo that. We love our cast members. We don't want to see anyone struggle, but there is a reality to this whole situation, and it's far, far bigger than just Disney being mean. It is a cost of living issue here in California. There's a lot of other factors way outside of Disney's control at play here. And we're just here to tell you the honest truth of what's going on. And, but like Dre said, like I said, we do empathize with anyone, whether you work for Disney or whether you work for any other company, and you can't afford to put food on the table for your family. That sucks. And, but unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at right now. A lot of people are at right now because of the economy and things going on in the world. But I want to thank everybody home for watching. Comment down below with your opinions. I know you guys and gals have opinions on this. Comment down below with all your opinions. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.